Now, this plays directly into your progressive ideology, because what progressives do in order to build their ideology, it's all built upon a utopian ideal. It's all built upon an assumption that in the future a utopia will exist, not can exist, but will exist, wherein human beings in this reality will live in a perfect way. They assume this to be absolutely true, even though logically it makes no sense. And they take this assumed truth that this will exist and then move backwards from it in order to construct their argumentation as to what they wish to implement today. And when they do this, they destroy any notion that there is any such thing as a fixed human nature. Because the point is, in their assumption that this utopia will exist, they then move backwards and say, okay, how do we get the people who now exist to fit into this utopia so that it can exist? Because it will eventually happen. We just want to bring it along a little sooner than it would naturally.
I just wanted to give you guys a brief example of the guest we have on tonight and the usual response that I have when I listen to his videos, which is that guy at the end. Mind blown. I know we're running late. Sorry, there are a few technical difficulties, so let's bring the man on himself. RJ, thank you so much for joining us here tonight.
Thank you very much, and thank you for that introduction. I had to stop myself from laughing just before I got on here. That was hilarious.
Don't stop yourself. We can laugh. Man, when I heard that line,
to myself sometimes.
I know. I've put Ethan through it. I've put a bunch of guys through it. But you know, it is what it is. When I heard you say that, I was like, holy shit, that is so right. That is so correct. That's what happens a lot when you listen to The Fourth Age. You have these moments, you're like, oh my God, this all makes sense suddenly. But let's also bring on the other panelists onto the show. We've got Poland and Joe Albino Thunderbuns. Welcome, fellas.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Hey,
yes.
Long time
Excellent. Excellent to have you here. Yes, a long time no see, Poland. Anyone who wasn't aware, Poland and I just streamed with Julia Song about a couple of hours ago. So yeah, it's a double stream for us tonight.
Yeah, boys, go check that out.
Absolutely. RJ, it's I don't know if this has happened to you, man. It is surreal when you hear someone, you know, that you've watched videos of for a long time, and then you actually have a conversation with them because you're like, hey, I know that voice.
No, definitely. Every time somebody mentions me in one of their videos, it's a little bit unnerving, I guess, because I'm just watching their videos because, right? And somebody says my name, is like, okay, that's really, really weird. Because I usually just talk to myself. I don't go on live streams a whole lot. It has to do with my connection because I'm way out in the woods. But yeah, it is surreal. I'll be that.
All right, before we get started, let's say hello to the wonderful people who have decided to join us here live. We've got Skip Edwards in the house. We've got Black Rose Comics. Mo Biggs is here. Mo has been undoubtedly giving it to me pretty bad for the lateness of the show, but it is what it is. You know, we do what we do. And Mo, it's 2 shows today, so you can, you know, cut me a little bit of slack. Felix Haas is in the chat. Great to see you here. He says, sorry he missed the show yesterday. Well, you don't have to apologize, Felix. You're always welcome here, my friend. Dean, notice the word is here. Hex Harper has showed up. Fantastic to see you here, Hex Harper. We've got Joe giving everyone the lowdown in the chat there, what happened. It's all good, though. We're past it now. Todd's Truth, great to see you, my friend. Who else is here? Rick Saylor, he says, Michael Bancroft, how right back at you. We've got my wife in the chat, always good to see. Johnny Rando's here. He says he's selling a blank notebook on today's show. It's called My Thoughts. Hey, Johnny.
Hail Johnny.
There you go. Scrolling down.
Johnny hung out in the Barton stream yesterday for a while, too.
He did. Manny Corneo. Is it Corneo? Cornejo? I don't know how to pronounce that. Sorry, Manny. He said, just got here. What did I miss? Well, we just started. So thank you so much for coming and hanging out with us. We're going to talk to RJ. We're going to talk heroes. We're going to talk his upcoming book that he's got the mailing list up for. Who else have we got? Hex Allen is in the house. Great to see you. All about the books. He's excited to see RJ. Yeah, we all are. I think we're all fans, and we have another guy on this panel, RJ, who hadn't heard of your channel, and we were like, "How have you not heard of his channel?" When every single time someone asks a question, usually it goes like this: Why? Why are these progressives? Why are these SJWs doing this? And every time I say, "Well, go on to the fourth age." Watch all the videos, and then you will understand. I think
actually, I have someone right now who's going through all of my videos like that. I apologize if there is. It's just my connection. Like I said, I have to use satellite. I'm way out in the woods. But yeah, I have someone right now who's going through all of my videos. I have people that just hit my channel and they just burn through all the videos. But I'm not the most known of the people who are producing comics right now. I can say that for sure. But hopefully we'll rectify that, partly with this broadcast.
RJ, sorry for being late. I'm one of those people who started burning through your videos, and then I just started downloading and archiving them, and I realized that's not good enough. I need to go through your videos and make like keyword notes and index them so I can look things up.
That's kind of what I do for videos. That's why I do the videos to begin with. It's the fact that before I had my channel, I would go through these things in my head anyways. And I said, you know what? I must just record it. That way I have some kind of way of going back to what I thought before and try to figure out where this all fits in. So I don't blame anybody for doing that for my videos. I've had people beg me to categorize them so that they can search through them. Unfortunately, I don't have that time myself, but if someone else is doing it, that's amazing.
Well, I haven't started yet. I'm actually working on a different area of my life, but I am getting a lot out of your videos, so thanks for putting them out.
No problem. Like I said, I used to do these things, and when I was on different YouTube channels, if I was leaving comments on your boy Zach's channel, there would be these giant comments, and I thought to myself, why don't I just record these things? And that's really where my channel came from.
Yeah, so you were listening to Zach, and obviously probably agreeing with him on a lot of stuff. But man, I don't think I've ever come across anyone who goes so in depth and like lays it out in such a clear and understandable way. It's like you can go into one of your videos not really knowing a topic that well, but by the time you're finished watching it, you feel like you've just taken a short university course on it. How do you do it like that? How do you get all that research and everything, and how do you find time for that and then put it all into one video?
Honestly, I don't do a whole lot of research for my videos. It's like I said, I usually run across a question during my week and my mind just works on it and works on it. And it would normally, even if I wasn't doing a video, it just works on a problem until I have it honed down to where I think the problem lies and where it came from and everything. I just want to understand. So that's where my videos really come from. I just want to understand myself. And I figure, well, someone else might want to know the way that I understand this, because hopefully I do it rationally and in a way that can be explained.
Yeah, I remember specifically one that you were talking about, Sana Amanat, and breaking down the whole reasoning behind why they're doing what they're doing with the comics and the characters, how they're not actually trying to take the industry back to a time when you had huge comic like floppy sale numbers and all that sort of stuff, and how they intentionally their goals were to get into scholastic programs and just gain more influence in certain political spheres. And when I heard that, I was thinking, my goodness, this explains everything what they're doing. It all became so clear when I watched that one.
Yeah, and the great thing about listening to the videos that the other side puts out is they don't think anybody from the other side is going to listen to their videos. So they lay it out on the line, because they won't listen to anyone like the progressives, the quote unquote progressives. They won't listen to anyone on the other side. So they don't think anyone's going to listen to them from the other side. So they lay it out, and they have no bones about what they're saying. And when you listen to their videos, it's really scary sometimes to hear it from their mouths that, yeah, this is what they're doing. And they don't care. They don't care if they're destroying the industry. They just want to, I don't know, indulge themselves in their love of villainy, I think, really. And that's just not just on the page.
RJ. Oh, sorry, Mike.
Okay, I was just going to say quickly, just recently, Ethan had a conversation on Twitter with Camilla Zhang, who you would know was the old, gatekeeper for Kickstarter. And, he just said to her what he always says, which is, why don't you stop congratulating yourself, patting yourself on the back, focusing on all this other stuff, and just start treating it like a business. And think, look after yourself, look after what your projects are doing, and make them the best that they can be. And she was like, she came back something, if we don't focus on representation and diversity and inclusion, how are we going to make any kind of real change in the world? And that's exactly what you're saying. They say all this stuff out loud, what their intentions are. They're in this business for their activism.
Yes, straight up, especially, again, if you listen to someone like Sana Amanat. I know I always go on about her, but I always say in the comments when people say, why do I keep talking about her? It's because it's like if you're covering national politics and you don't talk about the president. She's the one in control of Marvel Comics. Marvel Comics is the big boy on the block. So really, you got to talk about her. And she keeps on putting out these interviews where she says, when she was talking about, what was it, Marvel Rising, saying that, body diversity was one of the big things that they needed to stick into this comic, needed to stick into this show. I'm thinking to myself, why? And again, that's a question I had to answer. So I had to go looking for an answer. But they have no qualms about subverting what a story should be for, and making it into a political device.
Mm.
RJ, do you mind, for the benefit of the people in the chat who have not seen or listened to the video, could you go into some detail as to how Sana Amanat was recruited actively by Marvel? Because she had, to the best of my recollection, been essentially a political, I'll just say a political person, and came to the attention of someone in particular at Marvel. And so I'd appreciate it if you don't mind just kind of breaking down the story of how and why she was recruited, and who did the recruiting and the hiring of her to Marvel.
Yeah, that was always pretty sketchy.
It's actually pretty twisted story, as in to say, there's a lot of twists and turns in it, because, first of all, you have her family, who is very political family. They run different kinds of organizations that support, we'll say, democratic causes within New Jersey, different kinds of outreach programs for their community. And she has a brother, of course, who became a multimillionaire through, I think it was programming, and then got into making movies or producing movies, helping produce movies. And as he was doing that, he became known as, it is reported, this is not me saying this, but it was reported he was known as a serial swindler, so that he was swindling money from everybody as he was trying to produce these movies. And these are movies that you would know, movies like Red, movies like the Twilight Saga. He was involved in these kinds of things. And at the same time, you had Marvel being bought up by Disney, and things were simply falling apart. And so you had Marvel directly coming to this woman and asking her to literally change the entire fan base. Now, at that point, she only had I think it was like 2 years experience out of university working at a small indie company that went bust. Now, some say that it didn't quite went bust. It moved to, I think, India, but, same potato to potato there. So as she had very little experience producing comics, and yet Marvel, the big comic producer, went and found her. Literally, she says this herself. They came and found her, told her that they wanted her to change the direction of Marvel. She said she didn't have the experience to do so. Again, these are her words. And then she was told that's exactly what they wanted. They wanted to change everything about how Marvel comics were made, and especially the fandom. They wanted to change who their fans were. And I'm sorry, for the life of me, I can't think off the top of my head what his name was that went from Marvel. Yes, no, it wasn't Cebulski. It
Joe
was
Joe Quesada.
Joe Quesada. Joe Quesada, yes. It was Joe Quesada. And he went directly to her, again, found her, and asked her to change what Marvel was, asked her to change the way that comics were made. And again, at the same time, her family's connections included connections with the White House. Her cousin, who she grew up with in the same house at times, is Huma Abedin, who is known for scandals. And she worked directly for Hillary Clinton and the Hillary Clinton Foundation. And I believe, now I don't have any proof of this directly, but I believe that that's how she gained access to a sitting U.S. president, because Sana Amanat actually was in two different venues with Barack Obama as he was president. She introduced him in one and he talked to her at another. And again, this political connection, I think, really is what got her this job, besides the fact that her brother was a multi-millionaire within Hollywood. So it was political connections with Hollywood and political connections with, the Democratic Party that got her this job. And Marvel Comics was being driven by this need, I suppose, to try to change their fandom into something that it previously had never been. So again, that's really the bare bones of it. I go in depth in one of my videos talking about that, but I even have a lot of newspaper articles to support what I say. But like I said, I do believe she was a political hire, nothing more than a political hire. She knew nothing really about comics. She admitted she had no qualifications to do what they asked her to do. And again, if you have no qualifications in actually writing comics, producing comics, why would they give you the keys to a comic company unless you have some other influence which you can use to try to salvage this company? Because again, this was right around the time, a couple of months afterwards, everyone was freaking out at Marvel because it was rumored that they were going to be bought up by Disney, and then they were. So if you include the timeline of all of this happening, again, it's Marvel's, I do believe it's Marvel's attempt to try to stay relevant, Marvel's attempt to try to take its progressive direction, which it already had been in, and to just put it on steroids to keep themselves relevant in some way.
Yeah, and this kind of goes back around to that clip that I played at the top of the show, where you so well explained, what the whole what's really behind all the way that they think and the way they operate, and knowing that they are activists, political activists who have ideological agenda. And they have a vision for the future, and to them that vision is set in stone. That is happening. That is just over the horizon, and all they have to do in the present day is tweak things, fix things, mold things, push and pull things to force everyone to as close to that vision that they have of the future in the here and now. And that's why they act in these ways that to us who don't share that worldview, who don't believe in that idea of the utopian future that they, especially the one that they envision. That's why we're always sitting here in these streams going, why are they doing this? Why are they changing this? Why are they forcing this? Why are they trying to force this thing that isn't natural, that isn't going to happen? It's like Mean Girls, stop trying to make it happen, Marvel. It's never going to happen,
I think that one of the most telling things that I covered was a article that the I do believe it was the New York Times did with G. Willow Wilson, where she directly said that the reason why she became a writer to begin with was because she wanted to change the world. But when Donald Trump became president, that all changed. And what she saw as her mission at that point was to become a bulwark, a retreat point for the political ideology that she and all the other progressives, a sponge. And she was going to provide, as she called it, hope fuel for the leaders of their causes. And that's what she is going to do with her material. She wants to, again, straight out of her mouth was that she wanted to provide a retreat point for them to get back to so that they could regroup, and she could provide them with hope and then send them back out so that this attack again upon our civilization can begin once again. And she straight up says that this is the reason why she writes now. This is the driving force behind why she produces these stories that you see in comics like Wonder Woman. And that's really a scary thought when you look at it and break it down.
Yeah, so it's like what we're seeing now when they put out these just, sometimes often absurd representations of well-established characters, and then they make these like we've seen it recently in that what was it called, the DC
Future State.
The Future State. I mean, that's kind of pretty pretty perfect for what we're talking about here. They have a vision of what they see the future of comic books to be, just like how the Democrats and the liberals in America had a vision of the future of America, and in that vision, conservatives all die off, and everyone becomes left or far left or something, and everyone lives in a diverse, inclusive utopia where there's none of that old, nasty, conservative thought and anything left anymore. And when Trump came along, that was like a massive monkey wrench in their whole plans, and that's why they, had the Trump derangement syndrome for 4 years. And it's kind of a similar thing, I feel, with what's going on in comics. They have that vision, we see it, and then they write these just bizarre stories, really weird stuff. We saw another example of it, a Tom King panel was being shared around recently, that anyone who looks at it goes, what the hell is this? Well, that's part of what you were talking about. That's the disruption. That's the pushing and twisting people to fit into the vision of the future that they have. Whereas, I always say Ethan is like the Trump figure. He came in and blew this whole thing up, and now we have this movement of crowd-funded comics that is disrupting their perfect utopia, and that's why they're going so batshit crazy at us all the time with our books that actually have a market, have an audience of people who want to buy them.
Now, RJ, I was wondering if you could help. I don't know how to ask this as a question, so I'd like to just start a thought and let you correct it and finish it. I've noticed that they can't just leave you alone. It's a culture of Karens, and by that I mean you don't have to actually be racist. You just have to be not an activist, and so they'll determine that therefore you must be racist, as if your lack of specific activities is somehow causing racism, even though it's actually not. And so let's see, Michael and Poland here had a different guest on in a stream earlier today where she was saying, what does, if I'm just gardening and I have certain thoughts that people don't agree with, why do they have to come all the way across the country through the internet after me for them? That it doesn't affect them at all. What I think I'm seeing is the way these people are, it's like they're missing something in their lives, so they have to run around and fix other people, or they really just can't leave other people alone. What is going on that you've observed where is it something in their ideology or forgive the religious term, their doctrine that says that they can't just raise their kids the way they see fit? They have to somehow change the world to fit themselves rather than just do their own thing. I'm trying to hit on something and I don't even fully understand it. I don't know how to ask the question. Are you getting any drift of what I'm going after?
Yes. I did a video a long time ago, closer to the first of my channel, where I talked about the fact that these people are narcissists at best, and some of them are just straight up psychopaths. And I'm not using that term hyperbolically. Their ideology leads them towards selfishness, and that selfishness leads towards narcissism. And the thing is that for people who are narcissists, they need control. They cannot allow anyone outside of their sphere of control to exist. They must have control over the people that are around them, anything that even comes in contact with them. This is just psychologically known how narcissists work. And if you add psychopath into that as well, where they're only thinking about themselves and have no regard whatsoever for anyone else, which I would say is where this all leads to, they want you destroyed. If you have any kind of independence, it's not that you have an opposite opinion to theirs. It's not that you're expressing something that contradicts them. It's that you have independence. And if you show that independence at all, in any way, even in asking a question that seemingly has nothing to do with challenging these people, they will attack you. It's simply because they cannot stand anything out of their own control. And again, it's the progressive ideology and its selfish nature, where it depends on selfishness. It just leads to developing these kinds of people. And we got to remember that, I used to see this stuff in the late 1990s. I quit buying comics for a long time because I could see this progressive ideology in 1998. And I just started buying backstock for the longest time. And it's been there for a long time. So these people have been raised on it, especially someone like the writer Marika Tamaki. If you listen to how she speaks, she has never known anything but deep, heavy, progressive ideology. She can't even think outside of that. And if you're brought up in that kind of mentality, you're going to become a narcissist. You're going to become someone who cannot stand the independence of others. And so if anyone shows, again, even a streak of independence, they're going to attack. They're going to make sure that they try and destroy you.
I after you started explaining that, I do remember that's one of your last videos I had seen, going through your account chronologically, and now I just kind of catch most of the new ones, and I hope to start archiving your older ones again. But yes, okay, I was applying that when I listened to you before in the video you produced on a micro level, and not thinking of it enough on a macro level of it's because I'm familiar with narcissists. I've dealt with some, but they tend to control my experience, they tend to control other people. And no, it's worse than that. It's, as you just said, they must control anything they come in contact with. Okay, that's interesting. That's a perspective to remember. I did have another thought, though. I was listening to one psychologist give 4 types of narcissists, whatever, people divide them up differently. And one of the reasons narcissists can be caused, as opposed to, and then some people in that arena talk about the personality disorder is more ingrained. It can't be therapized out. Other people say narcissism can be created. It's like, why not both? Both can happen. And the creation mechanism was an emotional neglect growing up, from childhood, except for when, say, for example, the child is in a school play or participating in a sport, then they get all of the adulation, all the cheers and applause, but that's the only emotional confirmation they ever get. And that is one way to create a narcissist. You then are creating somebody who must be on stage in order to, it's a bit histrionic, you could say, there's an overlap there. They must be on stage in order to feel fulfilled. That makes sense to me, generation over generation, in terms of how children were raised, with the parents who didn't want their children to ever feel bad, so they had to have participation awards. And if I hope I don't want to talk too long. I think our audience might put the next puzzle piece in there already. So okay, thanks for clarifying that.
That what you said earlier, RJ. Striding Jack says to me, what RJ is describing in Dark Psychology is the definition of a villain. Well, that sounds very good, because Joe, I'm sure you were listening just then, and as RJ was talking, I was just thinking, goodness me, we've had these discussions ourselves as we talk about my book, and I was like, wow, what he's describing right now is the villain in The Lucent, Le Marechal. Like, that is a perfect description of how he operates and what he's all about. So that's very cool. I've hit on something there with that.
Yep, definitely. And I just want to say that because we got a late start, I want to make sure that we leave enough room in the hour for RJ to talk about his upcoming campaign. I know that, the 3 or 4 of us could ask him questions all night, and we'd be happy to let him expound upon any number of topics. But I want to make sure that we do give him a chance to tell the good people in the chat the project that he has coming up.
Well, yeah, we've just hit the half-hour mark, so that is exactly what I was about to go into. Where is it? I had it right here. Oh, it's right there. Okay. Silly tabs. No, that's not it. Oh my goodness. I had it and now it's gone in all the confusion. Hold the show just for 1 sec. I will bring it up.
So, Joe, how was your day? RJ, have you met Joe before? He's a nice guy.
Yeah, we met in the we met in the back room briefly before the show started. I'm a long-time subscriber to the Fourth Age. I really enjoy RJ's analysis. I'm not sure if I've ever listened to a video where I strongly disagreed with anything he said. We definitely have very, very similar, if not identical, philosophies on storytelling and heroic virtues versus villainous vices, and the way that heroes have been deconstructed for decades to the point where they're not recognizable as heroes and haven't been for quite a while. And we both have a common interest in bringing back classic superhero storytelling. So I'm excited to hear him talk about his project.
Cool.
Yeah, so Thomas Valiant, The Return of True Heroes, get back to feel-good comics with Thomas Valiant. Yeah, as well. I'm really excited to hear about this. So why don't you take it away, RJ, and let us know, a bit how you got started on this project and also a bit about what it's about.
Well, I don't even know how far back I can go. I wanted to be someone who could write and create. I've always wanted to do that. And I have written novels before, nothing that's gotten published, but I've tried to get them published and it's very difficult. So I always have stories running through my head. And I saw all of these crowdfunding campaigns going up, and there is I would say, a minority of comics that focus on superheroes. There's a lot of good comics out there, but I wanted to focus on superheroes, and the superhero comics that I saw that were being produced focus a lot on the 1990s kind of hero, but I wanted to focus on the 1980s kind of hero. So I sell my book as being, 2 parts 1980s X-Men, 1 part 1980s Justice League, and 1 part Ocean's 11. So this is I want to bring back the great stories and the great kind of art and storytelling from the 1980s, because I would say all those people who are looking at 1990s comics, that wouldn't exist without the great stories from the 1980s, and everybody developing as artists, not just the storytellers, but the great artists that we probably all grew up on. And I was just blessed to have Renzo contact me and ask if he could be part of my project. So I have Renzo Rodriguez doing the art, which some people may know from working with Richard Meyer on Pandemic and Impossible Stars. And
he
Renzo
was even
is a beautiful artist.
Some of the Jawbreakers, I think. I think he did a cover. He may have even done, I think pretty sure he did one of those short side stories at the end of one of the books.
Yeah, he did Devil Dog backup story.
There you go.
In Jawbreakers, the 2nd book, I believe.
Sounds right.
So yeah, he's the one who contacted me for trying to be part of this project, because I was looking for very clean art. Again, I wanted to go back to the 1980s clean style. And again, part of the reason why I say it's a bit Ocean's 11, I want to bring back a bit of class to, to the art and to the storytelling. And visually, I think Renzo does that beautifully. I got nothing against the more rigid, I guess we'll say angular styles that some people have from the 1990s or 1990 kind of style. But I wanted to go back to looking like, a 1980s X-Men cover. That's what I wanted to go back to. And Renzo provides that beautifully. But yes, if you want me to tell you a little bit about the story, I can do that
absolutely.
as well.
Let's hear, because this is the first time I've not heard anything about it. So you just take the wheel and drive.
Okay, well, again, this is one of the things that Renzo has to deal with when he deals with me, is that I have written a lot of backstory for my book because I'm focusing in this book almost completely on action. So there's a lot of different stuff that happens in the background, which I try to weave in through the action and through the adventure, because it's just a straight up action adventure. I think a good story can be told that way and still have a lot of things weaving through it. But basically my world is like an amalgam world of Marvel and DC. If you remember Amalgam from, I think it was late 1980s, early 1990s. So it's in a city. The city is one half a teeming metropolis and the other half is New York. And so it's divided by a river. So one half you got DC style heroes and the other half you have Marvel style heroes. And Thomas Valiant was one of these heroes on the DC side. He always wanted to be a hero. He was trained as a soldier and a spy, as a legacy for basically what was that world's version of the unknown soldier. And he focuses his powers on deception and, using them as a spy. That's what he focused on. But he falls out with the heroes on his side because he finds that they're just not being heroes anymore. And what they're doing is making no impact. So he decides to make his own team. And his own team consists of basically ne'er-do-wells, mercenaries, and villains who are looking for redemption. And that just puts him dead in the sights of all the quote-unquote heroes of his world. They want to destroy him and his team. First of all, because it looks like he's working with villains. Secondly, because if he does indeed become a true hero in the sense that he wants to, he's going to show them up. And so this is where my book begins. So Thomas Valiant and his new team are on their first mission. And when they just start their first mission, they just get attacked and pummeled from every side by the heroes of this world that don't want him to exist, because he will show them up. And they will have to go through the gauntlet to try to survive this world just to be heroes. And that's what the book is about. It's going to be at least 60 pages. I'm hoping to get it up to 80 pages if possible, because I have a lot of story to tell. But again, it's action adventure. What you're looking at right here is page 2-3, I do believe. And this is how we start with action adventure. And while there are a couple of lulls in the story, it never stops. And again, I want to put this in because no one wants to hear me, or no one wants to see a comic like my videos where I just talk for half an hour or 15 minutes.
Yeah, Marvel's been trying that for years now. You're right. No one does want to see it. Before we continue on, all about the books, thank you so much for $5. He says, RJ, you should promote your book with Zach and EVS. I know they will support you. I think they are fans. I've definitely heard Zach talk about your channel, and especially now that you've got the Renzo connection. Yeah, it could be a possibility. That would be a massive boon. You mentioned that just because you have a pretty popular YouTube channel, it's comic focused. That doesn't mean that people automatically think of you as a comic book creator. And now you've got to do the work of changing that and building up your profile. So yeah, I guess I'm happy if it starts here and ends up with those big channels. That would be awesome for you.
It's kind of ironic that, first, it's kind of ironic that you want clean art while we're looking at a piece that has rubble all over the ground, but it's clear. We can tell that it's rubble. We could tell what the broken glass is. We don't make mistakes looking at it. But now it's second of, I got 3 here. You the way you describe your story about the genuine hero, and yet the pseudo heroes don't even want him to exist because his genuine heroic nature will show them up. I hear an allegory to reality in all of that. I really do. And then I won't spell it out. But then, one of the things that really got me thinking and reading better, your videos have helped me as a reader, was your definition of a hero versus a villain, and this was quite some time ago, I believe. Because I came in late, I don't know if you covered that already, but I think for our audience, it might make your book if you could go over your definition of hero and villain for us, I would appreciate that, because I think it would really show us what makes your book valuable in terms of a good read and a story that we might want to keep.
Well, I always talk about hero in the traditional Western civilization sense of a hero. I was trained as a historian a long time ago, so I always like to go back through history. And as I say on my channel all the time, for near 3,000 years within Western civilization, a hero is a paragon of virtue. Those virtues are very specific. You have to be prudent, you have to be just, you have to have fortitude or courage, and you have to be temperate. Those are the 4 virtues that build a hero, and you need to act in that heroic fashion. And it needs to be connected to reality. Again, in order for to even have these virtues, you need to have right reason. That is to say, your reason in accord with how reality works. And so this is the traditional hero that you see in Homer, this traditional hero that you see in Robin Hood, that you see in so many great works throughout Western civilization, works that have inspired what we read as kids coming up through Marvel and DC. These were the stories that percolated into our comic stories and became the basis. They were true heroes. They were paragons of virtue. They were seeking the just. They were seeking to do right. And they were seeking to sacrifice themselves for these virtues, as opposed to villainy, which again would be a vicious person, someone filled with vice, someone who is unjust, someone who does not have courage, who doesn't know how to make a decision according to what they see around them, which would be imprudent, someone who is intemperate. And again, these are all things that we can see not only within the heroes, quote unquote heroes, that are produced within Marvel and DC right now, but also in the creators of those heroes. So that's my definition of a hero and a villain. And again, all I try to do is to mimic what has been laid down for, again, 3,000 years throughout the literature of Western civilization, because that is what needs to come back to our minds, I think, when we talk about a hero.
I think a lot of people are going to be pretty excited for this, not only because they're fans of you and your channel, but we've talked about this a bit now for a couple of weeks. There is a bit of a dearth, a little bit of a hole there in what's happening in crowdfunding for traditional heroes, and the ones that have done that, have gone after that. Peregrine, for example, comes to mind. Joe has his own book, his own hero universe that he's working on. They've done really well, because I do think that the people who are, especially the people who are in Comicsgate, the fans, the backers, all those people in Comicsgate, a lot of them have come from, they grew up reading Marvel, DC, whatever it is. So they're those kinds of readers, and they've stopped because those companies stopped supplying those stories. Now, that doesn't mean that they want to go and read all new kinds of independent style books. No, they're looking for what's missing. And, anyone who can jump up, like you, RJ, like Joe, like the guys at Greater Point 5, and deliver that, the likelihood of success is that much greater, I think. And we saw that with Peregrine, who don't have a massive, social media footprint, get over 1,000 backers on their first book, which is phenomenal. So this is all very exciting.
Their level of engagement has been fantastic, and I attribute a lot of that to the people involved with the channel, the way they appreciate their viewers and the backers of the campaign. And I also attribute it to a real hunger for traditional superhero storytelling. And I think that they have a fantastic tagline. I wish I had thought of it, where they talk about reconstructing superheroes. And I agree with what RJ said. Superheroes used to basically, they were in ancient times. The ancient version of superheroes were the heroes of ancient myth, and modern day superheroes were inspired by, the creators were inspired by ancient mythological figures, but the modern day superheroes were improved in the sense that they became virtue personified. They had flaws, yes. However, their virtues always overcame their vices, whatever those might be. And because they were essentially people who had become virtue personified, they were elevated to a point where the normal person like you or I growing up, we could look up to people like Superman. We could look up to people like Spider-Man, because even when things really got difficult, even when their own problems got in their own way, it was the strength of their virtues which allowed them to overcome the problems in their life or the problems in a particular scenario and still act heroic, even though it would have been much easier to do otherwise.
Where we've talked, we talk about all the ideologues and the activists and everything, but surely there are also just, I guess, quote unquote, normal people. People, I don't know if they're, like people like Tom King. There are a lot of writers and whoever out there in comics who are, I feel, they probably like genuinely are trying to write good stories, but they're just failing, especially with the hero side of things, like with Batman, especially. Where do you think they are failing, RJ? What are they getting so drastically wrong about the heroes these days?
Well, it's interesting because I just had a discussion with Literature Devil about this and the relevance of Superman and whether Superman is still relevant, because the people who produce comics right now seem to think that getting down and dirty and gritty with their heroes, quote unquote heroes, with their characters is the way to go. And that necessitates the jettisoning of any kind of idea of virtue. But I would say quite the opposite. I would say that's what your comic writers, even though they're trying to write good stories right now, that's what they do. They want a down-to-earth hero, sure, but that doesn't mean you have to jettison the idea of what a hero traditionally was. It doesn't mean you have to jettison the idea of virtue. Quite the opposite. Again, as I always say, in order to even have those virtues, you have to have right reason. That is to say, your reason needs to be directly connected and understand what reality is in itself. So a traditional hero really is a down-to-earth person, is someone who can be, gritty and normal and very relevant to everyday life, but they just don't understand that point. They don't understand how they can make something gritty and human and at the same time a paragon of virtue. They don't understand that connection. I think that's where they fall down.
And I think that, RJ, to your point, a good example of that, and this also ties into Michael's point, with somebody like Donny Cates, who is looking like in 2021 will be on at least 4, if not 5 titles, and looks to be the so-called, I forget what he called. I don't remember if he called himself the king of writing or someone called him the king of comics writing or something like that. But whatever it was, you have someone like that who has a lot of influence and is writing what are supposed to be superhero comics, and yet he admits on Twitter that he goes out and specifically picks fights with people so that he can block them. And he's admitted on camera that he really enjoys finding something to be angry at and then going out and antagonizing people who he feels some sort of anger towards. And then when they respond, he likes to fight with them. And if you want to do that, then that's certainly your prerogative. But if you're supposed to be writing superhero stories, I would hope that you would be spending a lot more time figuring out what superheroes are all about and trying to write the best superhero stories you possibly can, rather than spending so much time looking for fights and causing fights and then taking joy or pride or whatever it is in announcing how virtuous you are, or implying how virtuous you are by picking fights with people and then blocking them for Twitter clout.
As long as they're the wrong people. Or, sorry, the right kind of people.
The right kind of wrong people.
That's right. Yeah, it's a crazy world out there. But man, this sounds great, and you're getting a massive response from the chat. People are all saying it looks really cool. Slithering Peanut, thank you for joining us, says, a real superhero story. I wish I could back this. Well, it's not out yet, but you can, if you go right here, sign up to a mailing list. No commit. No, all you have to do is put in your email. In fact, I'm going to put in my email right now. I like to do that.
It's the first link in the video description. If anyone hasn't caught it in the chat yet,
I can't even spell my own name.
Yep, and because the book has not been, the campaign has not gone live yet. If money is a difficulty as far as backing, by getting on the mailing list, you could start saving up and budgeting for this, so that after it goes live, you can back it. And like Michael said, if you join the mailing list, there's no financial obligation whatsoever. All it does is allow RJ to send you notifications as to the status of the project when it's going live, and then any pertinent information during the campaign you can receive via that email list.
RJ, speaking of which, about how far out are we? Weeks, months from launch date?
Unfortunately, this is really a learning experience for me, and I'm taking this as fast as I can. But at the same time, I think I've put a lot of pressure on Renzo as well, because this is going to be a long book, and it's a marathon to finish. I realize that he's doing beautiful work, and he's getting it to me in great time, but I want to make sure that I have enough of the book completed, so that you're not going to be waiting for your book for too long after you get it. So unfortunately, I was hoping to have it live before November 3rd, let's put it that way.
Okay.
But I don't think that's going to happen at this point. Again, it's a really steep learning curve to have to deal with all the things that need to be done in order to get it live. So I don't have a specific date. Unfortunately, I can't say that I have a specific date in mind, but my goal is to have it live before the end of fall.
Okay. So if I start putting away $750 per paycheck, then I probably can pay for it the moment it goes live. All right.
There you
probably,
go.
I think.
Stephanie Renee says Thomas Valiant times Thomas Moria. Are you familiar with Thomas Moria?
I can't, for the life of me, think who it is off the top of my head.
Stefani is very happy to see somebody else writing a character named Thomas. He said that
yeah. No, Thomas Moria is legit, a real deal comic book. It's just launched recently. It's fantastic artwork. Stefani is actually the writer and artist and colorist on that project, and maybe he's saying a potential crossover in the future, perhaps. I'll leave that up to you guys, though. But yeah, the two Thomases. That would be a bit of fun.
RJ, one of the other things in an earlier video of yours, because I've heard the virtue thing before, it was a comparison that the hero is more, I forget if it's more moral than the villain, and this was earlier in your career as a YouTuber. It was the hero is more moral than the villain, and the villain is less moral than the hero comparatively. So they rank off of each other for the reader or listener to have that there. I hope I'm articulating it well, but without the rest of the virtue explanation that you gave, it doesn't make a little much sense, because you can have somebody who's immoral and then very immoral. But I found with that, the hero is more moral than I am, and the villain is less moral than I am. That tends to help me out when I'm reading someone who doesn't seem perfectly heroic, but then I can learn from their mistakes, and that's kind of where I'm landing with that. So that was a different definition I heard you give before, not contradictory, just a different angle. I was wondering if you
Yeah,
had any
you
more
really
thoughts on
are
that.
going through the old videos because
Oh yeah.
that's an old video.
Welcome, RJ. Meet Blue.
Hey, yours were cool, so I just started at the beginning.
Yeah.
So anyway, if you wanted to expound on that more, or is that something you'd rather leave as the as a maybe a version to be forgotten?
No. Well, I do believe that I probably misspoke a little bit in that video, if I remember correctly. But I was just going off of, again, I always go off of the historical definition of things. I go back to Aristotle and Aristotle's definition of what a story is. That's how he defines a hero. That's how he defines a villain. This is 2,400 years ago. And he's saying that this is how you identify with these people. This is how you know who they are in a story. Someone who is more moral than you, more virtuous than you. You can tell they're the hero, and you know the villain because he's the vice-ridden one. He's the one who you look at and say, that's not the kind of person I want to be. So again, all I ever do is to take these old ideas and try to bring them into the present.
So what about archetypes and relating those to heroic virtue? Do you ever get into that? I haven't caught that yet.
Yes, that would be one of the things I did in one of my recent videos. Again, Literature Devil had asked me about Superman, and he goes back to the archetypes. He goes back to Jung and the idea of archetypes. I really don't like the idea of archetypes. Again, I think Jung is just a rehashing of Plato, and while I love Plato, he was eclipsed by his student, Aristotle, who really based everything in reality, based everything in just the real and the everyday life of a human being and your habits and how you become a person who is moral, someone who is virtuous. I think the idea of archetypes is a little bit too abstract and doesn't have enough connection with reality to make that real connection for a person, to inform them and inform their actions to become a hero. So I like to go back to Aristotle, and again, the people who bring him forward, someone like Aquinas as well.
Mm-hmm. Aquinas is a lot of reading. I remember my dad's volumes on Aquinas. It's huge.
I would be interested to know how much reading has gone on between these two people here, RJ and Blue. It would probably fill an entire library.
Not enough. I'm a better auditory learner.
So, are you thinking you might start doing some more streams, or going out and stuff like that as you go towards launching RJ? Is that something you're looking to do?
Yes, very much so. I was going to say, if you ever want me back, just invite me, because again, I'm a closet. Oh, no, not a closet. I'm very much an introvert. Very much an introvert. That's why I put up my videos the way that I do. But yes, I would love to discuss my book more. I'd love to discuss my ideas more, and I'd love to hear what everyone else has to say about the idea of hero. That's partly why I put out those videos, is because I wanted to start a discussion, and to discuss with you here is a privilege.
Oh no, I mean we're all of us. I think I can say for all of us, we're all fans of your channel. I've loved this discussion. This has been right up my alley. I can tell Joe and Blue and Poland as well have been enjoying it. I've been seeing a lot of nodding heads and a lot of good questions from these guys and the chat as well. So you are absolutely welcome to come back. I'll really enjoy that. And as well, when it comes time to the launch and everything, I'm more than happy to, promote what you're doing. I think it's really cool. It looks great, sounds great, and hey, we all have to kind of look out for each other. We just had we just had a book launch yesterday. Replicator 3 from a guy who hangs out here in the chat a lot, and we get him on the stream, and man, his book has gone crazy. It's
the big launch.
It's already over 200 backers. It's, I don't know what it's up to now, like 17 or 18,000. It's done more in its first day than I think his campaign did in its first month the last time round. So he's really seeing some amazing growth, and
Wow.
I think a big part of that is getting out there, meeting the people in the chat, and I can tell. I've been reading all these chats. These guys really like you, RJ, and they like to hearing what you have to say. So yes, you are absolutely. That's a long way of saying yes. You are absolutely welcome back anytime. RJ.
Tetsunami has there's a couple chats here you should know if you don't have your window open. The icons don't come across on StreamYard, but Tetsunami is giving you the rock and roll fingers for introvert. So much love there. And Hex Harper is saying thank you for the stream if you didn't see it.
I mean,
I thank everybody for all of their comments. I'm just amazed at how many people actually want to listen to what I have to say sometimes.
that's the thing, isn't it? It's weird when you start to, people know who you are and everything, and it gets a little. I can imagine, I was doing the commentary videos for a little while myself, not very long, and jumping onto the streams was a whole new kettle of fish for me. And now I don't go back and do the commentary ones because I'm just too busy with other stuff. But I'm very happy that you continue to do them, because it's always a bit of a highlight when they come out and you're like, oh, what's he going to be talking about this time? It's really cool. It sounds like we need to get literature Devil on as well. He seems to be like a wealth of knowledge as well. So maybe we can get you guys both on at the same time. That would be cool too.
Possibly not an introvert.
Possibly not. Yes.
No.
All right. All right, RJ, that we're going to leave it there. We've made it to the hour. Thank you so much again for agreeing to come on and talk to us about Thomas Valiant. Hope you get a bunch of sign-ups from this, and more on into the future when you all the way leading up to when you decide to launch. Joe, Blue, Poland, always a pleasure to hang out with you guys. And to the sexiest chat in Comicsgate. You guys have been amazing today. We've had a whole bunch of people in here pretty much the entire time, and you've been giving some really, really cool comments here. And Jim Cox, I agree. RJ has a great radio voice. Perfect for streaming and making videos. We will...
Came to both shows today. Really appreciate that.
Yes. We will... it's my day off tomorrow. So you won't see me tomorrow, but I will be back the following day. I think that's Sunday for America.
Yep.
And we will, I think we have a guest lined up, but if we don't, we'll have another cool chat, and we will see you then. All right, guys. Bye.
Take care.